And a lot of sisters that now are in the West, they expect that their husband just only stays with them. And if that's their expectation, their personal expectation, then that's not something they should communicate.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Beyond the Mimbar podcast. I am your host Muhammad Saeed, and today it is a beautiful day. Alhamdulillah, I am joined with my beloved brother, beloved Shaykh, Imamina, Ustadana, Habibana. It's none other than Shaykh Mustafa Abu Rayyan. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Akhi, I'm very good, mashallah. Thank you for that stellar introduction.
No, alhamdulillah.
It was a bit exaggerated.
We see each other like a lot at the Masjid, and it's always nice to come and sit down here.
It's always nice
and have a discussion.
Always, alhamdulillah.
And I must say it's been a while, but it's good to have you back. And of course, what I want to talk about with you is inshallah something that will be beneficial for the people, and of course a quote unquote hot topic. And there's no hot topic like the topic of marriage.
That's correct.
Right?
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
There are other hot topics, but of course marriage is a hot topic.
It's something always people are discussing, yeah.
Indeed it is. And you know, Shaykh, in this discussion that we're having, it's primarily going to be catering towards people who are already married. And inshallah, maybe we may have different parts that we want to discuss in other episodes, but today it's primarily for the people who are married. And you had a discussion with me regarding this before.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit more about why is it that you wanted to target the married couples?
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. I think that when you reach a certain age, you start thinking about getting married. Either your parents are pushing you, or even society, which is a good thing. It's a very normal thing. And we often start looking for partners, spouses, wives, husbands, without understanding exactly what it all entails and what needs to be done. What kind of person do I need to be the best husband possible or the best wife possible? And then we end up in these relationships. And there are internal factors and external factors that, although marriage should be a very beautiful thing, people struggle. People struggle maintaining it. People struggle being in these relationships. And this is something as imams of Masjid we see often. So I think it's always very helpful for young couples, older couples, people that just got married, people that were on the journey for a while, to talk about what are some of the things that you can do that can help you maintain your marriage. And our objective in the day is to keep our homes flourishing, blessed and intact. And I think that's why I think this is an important discussion that inshallah hopefully everyone of those people can benefit from.
No, Jazakallah khair. Even to just to add to that, Shaykh, you know, you've mentioned it to us that the husband and wife coming together, bringing families together, you know, brings together family, creating and having children, you know, you have a household, and then that is like the core of communities.
It is.
Communities are all just families, you know, all these families that are together. So we start by making sure this family first is, you know, solid, you know, is solid and everything is okay. So that's why also you mentioned that you want to discuss this topic. And of course, when we were discussing it, you know, like you mentioned, many people want to get married. You know, I was saying to you earlier, before I was married, all I could think about was just, I need to get married, you know, I need to get married. But not a lot of people talk about maintaining the marriage. So before we dive into it, I want to ask you, is there such a thing as the perfect marriage, and what does that look like?
I think when we should always try and strive to perfect whatever we are involved in, whatever we're doing. But because we are flawed human beings, we are often prone to error and mistakes. Allah mentioned in the Quran that we are dharoom jahul. We are often transgressing and oppressive and ignorant. And this is why Allah sent us prophets and messengers to guide us and to keep us on the straight path. And there's always going to be shortcomings. So because we don't have perfect people, we're probably never going to have perfect marriages. But we should never, that is not necessarily what you need to strive for. There is an ideal marriage. And an ideal marriage is that with all the imperfections that are within it, there is the three components that Allah mentioned in the Quran. من آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة. Allah mentions that from His signs that He has created wives and spouses for us, and Allah mentions that so that we may find tranquility. So a good marriage is one where there is tranquility and comfort. And Allah says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ, Allah has put between you مَوَدَّةً, love, وَرَحْمَةً, and mercy. So any home, any household, any relationship, any marriage that has comfort and tranquility, that has love and mercy, this is a good marriage. This is an ideal marriage. And if that's present, then another very important component that is mentioned in other ayat and other hadith will definitely be present, which is the fulfilling of rights and the taken on board of responsibilities. So when both are doing their duties to each other, and before that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's a healthy amount of love and mercy, that will be a house that has tranquility in it, and that is what we need to strive towards.
MashaAllah. So already I'm getting the positive, optimistic vibe from the house in which two people are married. Not like when you're at home, I need to go home. Look at my wife is calling.
No.
You know, like that already, the negativity is there. You know, so it shouldn't be like that. And you mentioned those three components is what the marriage should entail. And you also mentioned rights and responsibilities. Now, Shaykh, when it comes to rights and responsibilities, I want you to cover them. Inshallah, what is the right and responsibility for the husband and for the wife? But the takeaway point from them should be that, as well as them not necessarily being all about my rights. You know, he's not feeling my rights, she's not feeling right. We need to be working together, not against each other, and just saying, you know, my right. Otherwise, what are they doing? Just protesting against each other.
No, honestly, you're right. It's quite interesting. So, you know how when we talk about the salah, we talk about the salah, and there are certain arkan, certain pillars that must be present. And if they're not present, the salah is invalid. But then that is just the bare minimum. Then you have the sunnah, the mustahabbat, and those are split into so you have recommended actions in salah that are highly recommended, and some scholars, if you miss them, you do sujood sahw, and there are those that are even additional that are recommended to do, but if you miss them out, it's not gonna affect the salah in a major way. And then you have, you know, that which beautifies your salah, you know, your khushu' and there are, so when we say rights and responsibilities, we're talking about the basics that must be present. But your marriage should be more than that, right? You should not only be thinking, well, I've done my bare minimum, I've done my obligation, what else does she want from me? I've done my obligation, what else does he want from me? No, you should strive to go beyond that, and try and be the best husband you can be and the best wife you can be. Going back to the whole responsibilities, and I think it's better to focus on responsibilities. Okay, so the responsibility of a husband to his wife, you can split into two. There are financial responsibilities that are upon him, and then you have non-financial responsibilities. So the financial responsibilities are that the first one that immediately comes to mind is the moment you marry a woman, she has the right for the dowry, which is the meher, and she can name anything, and whatever she names once agreed should be paid to her. So the meher is a financial responsibility upon the man that he needs to give to his wife. And this is a appreciation and a gift, and it's wajib for the husband to give this. Then you have the spending on her and providing for her. So the men are the breadwinners in Islam. They are the men meant to be providing for the wife and going to work, or if maybe they are in business and they need to spend on their wives and their children. Then you also have providing accommodation. So these three things: the meher, the spending, and the accommodation. These are responsibilities of the husband. And when the hadiths say, whoever among you is able to get married, the word able means able to provide these things. Then there are rights, or I should say the responsibilities of the husband that are non-financial. And that starts with living with them in a kind and fair way, treating them in the best way possible, having good akhlaq with them. Then you also have, for example, that's a responsibility upon him. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, live with them in fairness and kindness. Then you also have fulfilling her desires, and that's the whole point of marriage, isn't it? That you are able to be intimate with each other, and this is also a responsibility of the husband. So these roughly encompass the responsibilities of the husband to the wife.
Okay. And the wife?
What are the responsibilities of the wife? The responsibility of the wife is that she is obedient and respectful to her husband. She has no financial responsibilities. So the wife has no financial responsibilities in the marriage. Now, if she contributes, it's sadaqah. And sometimes it is recommended for her to contribute and to help. And anything that she gives, Allah will reward her for it. But there are no financial burdens on the wife. But what she does have to do is be an obedient respectful wife to her husband. And when we talk about obedience, no Muslim, man or woman, is allowed to obey another in disobedience of Allah, right? Or obey another in that which is harmful to them. So anything outside of that, she should be respectful, obedient, and serving her husband. 2 is that she needs to also fulfill his physical desires as well. And the sunnah heavily emphasize this, right? And again, this is the whole point of marriage, because what you want is that when both of them leave, that the fitna in the world is not affecting them because they have each other. So fulfilling his physical desires and being obedient and respectful to him, and living with him in kindness and with good character. These would be the responsibility of the wife. So those are like the bare minimum and the basics. After that, it is living with each other in a way that is righteous and good, and fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as it relates to each other, and trying to be the best wife and the best husband they can possibly be. And they should take a lot of how they're going to live each other from the way the Prophet treated his wives, from the way the wives of the Prophet treated the Prophet ﷺ, or the Sahaba, etc., etc.
Jazakallah khair. I've even heard, in terms of responsibilities, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the wife, her being she is responsible for the household, that in terms of whatever goes on in the house, whether it's talks from her husband or arguments, whatever it is that's in her household, she is responsible to keep that
private and confidential. Yes, there's a narration that mentioned this as well, that she guards her household and the secrets of her household. And also, for example, there's one hadith that mentions that among the responsibilities of the wife is that she doesn't bring in her home anyone that the husband doesn't want to, right? So again, this is where that kind of comes under the whole respecting your husband. And look, any healthy relationship, a woman, a good wife should have a healthy amount of respect for her husband. Right? This is your husband. He's out there for you. He's earning for you. He's taking care of you. And this should be, and similarly with the husband, this is your wife. She's raising your children. She's taking care of your household, right? She left her home, her brother and her father, and she came to you. And there has to be a lot of love and respect. And we mentioned this in the beginning. And the love and the mercy has to be the engine that moves all of this.
And it's a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a team, and then we're not against each other, but rather we're working together. And of course, Shaykhna, that there's a lot of things that may, try and break apart this team, and that may be internal issues, rather external issues. Now, what I want to talk about now is in terms of if you and your wife, that you're for her, she's for you, like the ayah mentions, libas.
Yes.
Right? You're clothing for her, she's clothing for you. Those benefits from each other. With that in mind, what are sometimes modern day movements that have caused or even affected marriages? We are, in the end of the day, we are always going to be affected by the times that we live in. And subhanAllah, the Sharia takes into account this, which is why certain rulings can change based on where you are and when you are, right? And this is taken into consideration in marriage as well. So one of the things that have changed the dynamics of marriages is, for example, women joining the workforce. Okay.
Right. So a lot of people in the past, that wasn't the case. So maybe that your grandmother or your mother wasn't necessarily working and they were at home. And so the division of who does what and was quite clear. But now that you have a lot of young women and they also work, so they are out as well, which then means how do we split like the daily responsibilities? Also, or the woman is not as reliant on the husband to provide for her. So that changes the dynamic a little bit. And of course, so that's one aspect. And we have to deal with that, which is, so there are, for example, some people that are saying that, no, women shouldn't be working. No, she shouldn't be working at all. Why are they working? It's the husband's responsibility to provide and they should stay at home, which is fine. But Islamically, they don't have to, but it could be that either circumstances or sometimes culture affects these things. and it is culturally acceptable for young women to go and work. Maybe it is the economy that's making it very difficult, and we know how the living cost crisis that we're living in. So these things can affect. So sometimes we do have to adjust.
Yeah.
And when we are going to adjust, we have to take into consideration a lot of things. And in the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the couple that when external changes are happening, that they always know that their compass is going to be the Quran and the Sunnah. That they are always going to come back to the Quran and Sunnah and ensure that at least the major rights are being fulfilled. That they are not transgressing upon each other.
Yeah.
And that they are working together.
Yeah.
Making decisions together.
Yeah.
The wives are taking lead from their husbands. Husbands are consulting their wives. This is really important. But of course, these things will affect. And I think that whenever these changes happen, we should be very pragmatic. And this is the advice I always give people. Be pragmatic in your marriage and understand that even if culture changes or things shift, that you try and figure it out. Right? Figure it out. And it could mean then it could mean that looks like that maybe husbands are going to be more involved in the house than they used to be before.
Yeah.
If that's what your marriage needs, that's what your marriage needs.
Yeah.
But it's also important that there's a clear line of what everyone does and whose responsibilities they are, and that we don't lose our traditional values.
Jazakallah khair.
Then you have sometimes ideologies. For example, the feminism movement has a huge impact on sisters, so to the point that they struggle with things like a man marrying a second wife, or they struggle, and we'll get to that later, or they struggle with the idea that I have to obey my husband.
Yeah.
And this is something foreign. Why? What do you mean? But it's very strange to me that this word, and again, a lot of negative connotation has been put on this word of ta'ah, obedience.
Yeah.
So, but people obey their managers.
Yeah.
Your manager asks you do this, you go and do it.
Yeah.
And you don't ever feel that you're being demeaned. You're like, no, this is my job. I gotta do my job. And the only time that your mother will tell you do this, you're like, ala rasul ayn, I'm gonna do it. You obey your mother, right? But when it comes to the husband, it's there's this thing around where, wait, why should I? And I think this is something that our sisters, they need to understand that, like I said earlier, you don't have to obey anyone in that which harms you. You don't have to obey anyone and should never obey anyone in that which is haram and not allowed. Outside of that, you are expected. You are expected, and this is perfectly fine. And it is among your responsibilities to ensure this. Now, in a healthy relationship, you don't have to be like, yeah, zawjati, or my wife, obey me. This doesn't happen, right? But there has to, husbands are meant to take charge. Yeah. Hence why they have all these financial burdens and responsibilities. And wives must there to support their husbands. Yeah. And they need to feel good about this as well. This is my husband. Yeah. Okay, and this is my etc. So anyway, I think the certain ideologies had a very unhealthy impact, and I believe that it's important that a lot of our sisters and a lot of our brothers, they need to rethink this and understand that when Allah spoke about marriage, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that created us and knows what's best for us, that we always go back to the blueprint of the Quran and the blueprint of the Sunnah. And like I said, I'm going to say this again a few times, all of this is built on a foundation, and that foundation is love and mercy and tranquility, right? This is what has to be in the marriage, and everything else will fall into place. And I would say even before that, it's built upon being servants of Allah. Yeah. I'm going to serve Allah by being the best husband possible, and she's going to serve Allah for being the best wife possible. And we're going to fulfill each other's duties and our responsibilities to each other. I think this is the best way to avoid being impacted by these ideologies.
What are little things that we do? You mentioned something really nice, right? And that is a lot of dua. A lot of dua for you and your other half of your marriage. Yeah. But I think that's a good kind of sign for you in terms of your marriage. If you are making dua for your spouse. Yeah. If we are making dua for our spouses, not when we get into an issue, she's doing that, I'm doing this, and I'm upset at her and whatever, and you just want to leave rather than, Allah, preserve my wife, bless my wife, this for Allah, preserve my husband, give this for my husband, whatever, making dua for each other. And even stuff from the sunnah, like good nicknames,
Yes.
and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff from the sunnah to
that helps the marriage. No, this is why, again, the Quran and Sunnah is a blueprint.
Yeah.
The Prophet ﷺ said, tahadu tahabu. Give each other gifts, you will love each other. Right? The Prophet ﷺ told, when you come into us, spread the salam. Right? Make dua for each other. Pray together. These things. Have you been praying together? Have you been giving salam to each other? Have you been giving gifts to each other? Have you been giving your spouse what they like and what they need? Do you even know? Sometimes maybe your wife likes to go out for food. How was the last time you've done that? Right? Maybe your husband likes to hear that you appreciate him.
Yeah.
Have you done that? Maybe he likes a good meal. Have you been doing that? So there's things that everyone needs to assess their relationship and say, what is it that because if you've been married for a while, you know what your spouse likes.
Hopefully.
But hopefully. But then a lot of times, the hustle and bustle of life, the 9 to 5, the kids, and all that stuff, it makes you kind of forget to put the work in.
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely important that we are doing this, maintaining our marriages and working on them.
Exactly.
And it's marriage is meant to be something that is good, happy, fun. This is what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, then there's definitely work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I would say this easily. I don't think there's ever a marriage that doesn't need work. All of them need work.
Yeah.
Right? Some maybe more than others, but they all need work.
Yeah.
And it's important that we are putting in the work and learning about what it means to be a spouse.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of material out there that you can read as well. I think people that try and learn more about how can I be a better wife, how can I be a better husband, they tend to have healthier and better relationships as well. Communication is key as well. There's so much that can be said actually about this aspect, that if we did more of that, more of the sunnah, more ibad in the house, more caring, more love, more good akhlaq, more sacrifice for each other, if this was present in our homes, then we would prevent so many future problems. And Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. I want to continue to talk about what the responsibilities of the husband and wife. But before we get to that, Shaykh, another thing as well is that we mentioned about taking care and whatever. It's going to be difficult to want to take care of your marriage when you're looking elsewhere. Does that make sense? In terms of social media and all this different everything that's being shown to us, the couples that are this or whatever, or even rather, if you're not lowering your gaze, there's another issue, like someone who is struggling with lowering the gaze. Marriage should help with lowering the gaze, but if you're not lowering your gaze, your eyes are wandering everywhere. You're not appreciating what you have at home, and this could be for both, for the man and the woman. Yes. Would you agree? Absolutely.
And I think social media has really amplified that and really increased that. So you have couples comparing themselves to other couples. Such and such went to a holiday, why haven't you taken to me a holiday? Such and such do this, why we're not doing this? And you're constantly comparing your life to others. It's so hard to be happy when you're constantly comparing yourself to people that you assume have better things. And it's almost that, when people watch films and stuff, everyone knows it's fake and it's done in a set, but it looks very real. And that's why you get so involved in it that you sometimes forget it's fake. Hence why people will cry. They'll cry. Why are you crying? Why are you sad? You know the acting, because sometimes we switch that button off, right? It happens with social media as well. If you ask, you see this couple are doing this together, they're doing that together, you do realize that this is just, a lot of it is just an act. They're doing it for the account. They have just as many problems as you have, but people don't see this. And then what happens is you devalue what you have. You devalue what you have, right? And it may be that you start judging your spouse and comparing them to people that they don't know and they have never seen. And subhanAllah, it's ajib, because of our phones now, we are exposed to the lives of so many people. And this is so unhealthy, and it leads to jealousy, it leads to hasad, it leads to envy and unhappiness. And that is something everyone has to control and maintain. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say everyone get rid of your phones or get rid of social media, but be responsible, be smart, and understand that a lot of what you see is not real. Then on top of that, we have the issue of lowering your gaze. You have now, so instead of, because if you're not lowering your gaze and you're looking at other people, this, first of all, it's haram. Secondly, it may lead to falling into acts of haram, and also not appreciating what you have at home. So these are all the things that will also lead to the destruction of the home that must be avoided. And if you're someone that fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll avoid these pitfalls.
Jazakallah khair. Coming back to you now, Sheikh, Jazakallah khair for the benefits. for a wife, right? And this is going to be maybe controversial, and it's something that's always discussed. Do wives have to cook and clean in terms of when they're maintaining their household, and as one of the responsibilities of the wife, when the husband and wife, her responsibility is in the house, so maintaining it means cooking and cleaning?
Okay, so there's a few ways to look at this. I don't like to discuss these issues based on like, is it wajib or not wajib? And the reason for that is that sometimes we look at, if you look at things just from an obligation perspective, then what's gonna be missing is ihsan. What's gonna be missing is going the extra mile.
Tick box.
Yes, it becomes like, okay, I'm just gonna do the basics, right? And a lot of time fiqh books, they do discuss the bare minimum and the basics because you need some sort of a benchmark. Okay, you have to at least do this. Now, when it comes to cooking and cleaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran mentions that husband and wife should live each other within kindness, fairness, and also that which is custom, bil ma'ruf, that which is reasonable. So, if the culture and the custom is that wives generally cook and clean, then this is what they should do. This is what they should do. It goes back to the urf. If the custom and culture is that they have other people do it for them, like in some countries, there's actually a heavy usage of, for example, maids and things like this, and they have people that work to this, and then that will be different. If it's if the culture and the custom is in such a case that there's a lot more of shared work being done, then that will be the case. I think that is the most balanced view. There are some ulama that actually said that they don't have to do this, but if they do it, they get rewarded. And there's some that said that they must do it. But I think the most balanced view, and Allah knows best, is it goes back to the urf, and generally speaking, traditionally speaking, this is what they did, and it makes sense. The husbands went out to earn, the woman folk would be at home taking care of the needs of the house internally. And I think based on that, I would say generally speaking, the wives should be providing and serving and cooking and cleaning, doing this, and the husbands should be supporting in this regard. And there can be circumstances where they are doing less of that, either because they need to work or because whatever the reasons may be. And I think if that's the case, again, it all goes back to whatever the couple agree on. And I think it's important to understand that every household can be different. The way they set up can be different. And maybe there's one household that the husband is supporting the wife in the house a lot more than another one, and as long as each one is happy and the boundaries that they set and the rule and the patterns they set for themselves, and that is fine.
I agree in terms of cleaning, in terms of chores. Right, like everyone should have like a list of chores.
Okay.
Right, that they're doing. The wife is this, the husband is that. That's fine, and also in cooking is fine. However, what I may argue, and you can correct me, Sheikh, is that even if the custom is saying that women should cook, I believe that
should or shouldn't.
Shouldn't.
Okay.
It's not customary for the woman to cook, but I don't even believe that there is any traditional custom out there. Is that
even the case? I mean, this argument. I don't know. Maybe the West may be moving towards that now, but even then, it still seems to be something the woman do.
Yeah, it is right. However, and that's so funny because you said that, because I remember, I like to watch some cooking shows, and most of the competitions of the cooking competitions, it's the men who are winning, not the women.
Okay.
Right, and head chefs are always usually
the sisters need to step up,
men, right? But I would say that in terms of household, right, a woman should have it in her arsenal as a skill that she can cook. Not the fact that she should cook or whatever, but it should be in her skill set. That she can cook. She can cook.
I
for the brothers maybe as well,
but most of it, absolutely most of it. You know what? Again, we're now getting into realm of opinion, which is fine. No, it's fine. Because it's important that we distinguish between shari views and personal views, right? And both are fine, But I agree with you. I mean, I would also argue. I would argue is that if a woman that can cook and a woman that cannot cook, maybe if they're both striving to get married, this person has a degree over this other one, the one that I can cook. But I do believe that some young sisters that maybe don't know how to cook, it's okay as long as you are willing to learn. And
I'm going to push you a step further, Sheikh. Right. We're still talking about husband and wife. Right. But when the woman, she's going to be bearing the child and she's going to be raising the children. How can you raise a child, right, and you don't know what to
You
cook
don't
for
have
and
the skills
feed. Yeah, exactly.
to do all this.
Do you get it?
This is why it's important that they, although I think naturally they pick this stuff up.
They do. I'm not saying that they don't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they don't pick it up, but I'm just saying that it should be something that is taken into consideration.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Like a sister shouldn't be like, I don't want to cook and I'm never going to learn how to cook.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be, I'm not supposed to cook, whatever the case may be. And I don't think sisters are like that anyway.
No, they're not.
They're not.
You know, a lot of these discussions, they're held. But I think in most households, naturally, these things, they tend to set themselves in the way things naturally are.
Yeah.
Right? It's very rare to see a household where the husband is not trying to earn and provide for his wife. It's very rare to see a household where the woman is not taking care of and maintaining the household and cooking for her husband. I don't think I've ever seen that, which means we always have these theoretical discussions, but I do believe that alhamdulillah, in most homes, these things are generally the same way they've always been.
Yeah.
And it is from the sunnah for the husbands to aid their wives in the household.
Yep.
And it is also in the Quran and Sunnah that you live together in fairness and in kindness and serve each other, and this all comes under that.
No, Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feek, Shaykh. So now we talked about the sisters and the cooking and the cleaning. Let's talk about the brothers now, the husbands. Yeah. Because when it comes to husbands, right, and you know better than me, because you've dealt with so many maybe marital issues. Could it be fair in saying that in like the year that we live in the times that we live in, men have lost a sense of patience and tolerance? Because you can correct me if I'm wrong. Would you say that in the experiences that you've had in any marital issues, the man is primarily the person who's going to be given the divorce, and it's usually he's lost patience, he's angry, and he's just the tolerance level is just gone, right? Is that something that we have an issue with today?
I think I would first of all pose that we should probably have another session where we were talking about divorce.
No problem.
What are things that lead to divorce? How can those be mitigated?
Okay, let's deal with patience and tolerance.
Yes, but I do believe that there's a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the talaq in the hands of the man, right? There's a reason for that. There's a hikmah behind that, right? And that is because men are meant to be less emotional and making these decisions. And you know what? Nowadays, people, for many reasons, I think we just live in such a fast-paced world.
Yeah.
We live in a fast-paced world where everything is on demand, right? From click of a button, food comes to you. You're watching something, you don't have the patience to finish a long video. Patience is actually something that we're losing as a society, right? And that has an impact on us, right? Sometimes when a marriage problem needs time to fix, you need time. Honestly, sometimes it's time heals all wounds, but people don't have the time. They will say, I'm done, and I want to move on to the next, and this and that. And I think that to my brothers, I would say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you a responsibility and authority over your homes, and you need to take that seriously.
Yeah.
And you need to be patient. And the Prophet instructed us to be patient with our spouses, and that often you will see shortcomings, like they see shortcomings. But if the husband is exercising tolerance and patience and self-reflecting, like I mentioned earlier, this will go a very long way. Go a very long way. How many times do people come to us and they say, Shaykh, I divorced my wife in anger? Does a divorce count? Yeah. And it's like, well, it was your responsibility to control your anger. It was your responsibility. If you're regretting it now, that means that at that time you were not in control of your emotions. And honestly, mastering our emotions is something that we all have to work on. Yeah. And there's a lot of resources out there about understanding emotions and learning about emotions. And I think that's something that a lot of people should tap into and learn more of. I've personally been benefiting from looking into things like this, where how does one ensure that they are controlling their anger, they are understanding where the emotions are coming from, they are assessing themselves, because a lot of what's happening in here, you have control over it, but the moment it comes out, it can cause a lot of damage. Yeah. We say things that are hurtful, and when it comes to marriages, you can really damage the other person by the things you say.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you can damage the relationship by just saying I divorce you and then regretting it later. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And brothers, they need to exercise more sabr and more patience.
And they're the leaders of the household anyway. So if they, you know, people forget that if you show like the best of characters, your restraint and your tolerance, and it's gonna feed into the rest of the family.
It really is.
But if you're losing the plot and you're angry and you're shouting,
the whole house is
everyone's saying, yeah, Shaykh, this is fine. He's doing it. You know? Shout here, shout back.
And you know, this again, we need to become men. Our men need to be stronger, and that doesn't mean only physically stronger, but mentally stronger. And again, it all goes back to striving to become the type of leaders and husbands and men that Allah speaks about in the Quran and the Prophet spoke about in the Sunnah. Salawatullah wa salamu alayhi.
No, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. There's something that just came into my mind. You can, inshallah, maybe expand on. And there is something in the Sunnah that mentions that when you see something that you don't like of your wife, that you should think about other stuff that you actually, positive parts of it. And going back to optimism again.
Absolutely, that exists, and it's again, no one's perfect. If there are flaws here, there are good things here. And again, this is for men and women both. Often remind yourself of the good qualities of your spouse, because the shaitan will only remind you of the bad ones. And this is normal. You walk into a room and it could be the cleanest room ever, but then you immediately see, I don't know, like a small stain. Your eyes will immediately go there, and you start, well, why is this stain here? And you won't see the rest of. And we do this with people. You may know someone for a very, very long time, and they slip up once, and that's all that's all you'll focus on. And we have to teach ourselves to look at the good in people, to seek out the good in people, to remind ourselves of the good in people. And wallahi, it's so helpful when you just sit and you start thinking about all the good things your wife does for you, all the amazing things about your wife, you're immediately gonna start thinking, you know what, this is a person I should appreciate. You almost kind of feel, you know what, let me give her a gift. Just by thinking about all the things that they've done. And the same thing goes with the wives. But you start thinking, okay, my husband is at work right now, he's paying the bills, he's doing this, he did this, I asked him to do this, he does it. And all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I should appreciate this person. But which is why we need to do this a lot more often and focus less on the negative aspects of an individual, because everyone has negative aspects. Of course, like you mentioned in the beginning, we all make mistakes, right? Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Let's come back to talking about culture a bit more, inshallah. And that is, what role does culture play in a marriage? What role does it play? I think beyond just marriage, what role does culture play in Islam? Right?
Oh, Jameel.
So we received, alhamdulillah, Allah brought us revelation to the Prophet ﷺ to teach us how to live our lives. The Quran and the Sunnah. Right from wrong, our morality, halal and haram, good and bad, all of this goes back to the Quran, the Sunnah, and revelation. Now, there are certain aspects that are not specified within the Sharia that goes back to, then it goes back to culture, right? So certain things will be left ambiguous, and then it goes back to culture. So Islam came to correct the flaws and errors in all cultures. So if there's something that is, if it's culturally acceptable for a woman to go out without hijab, for example, there's a society where the woman, they don't cover up. Then Islam comes to them, they can't say, well, our culture says we don't cover up, so we're not going to. No. Islam came to correct these aspects of your culture. Now, when it comes to things that our religion has not spoken about, right? I'll give you an example. When a man wants to marry a woman, he has to give her the dowry, the mehr. It has not been specified how much the dowry is going to be. It hasn't been specified. But we have been told that the woman can choose. Whatever she wants that has value, she can choose. Now, sometimes there's a concept that's discussed in the books of fiqh, which is called mehr al-mithl. Mehr al-mithl, right? Which is that sometimes it may be that they got married without specifying the amount of the mehr, and there's a dispute now. It was this much, it was that much. And we can't figure out how much was agreed. Then what's looked at is culturally, a woman of this family, this nature, this kind of background, culturally, how much does she get? And then the judge will rule it based on the culture or the custom or customarily. When traveling, some of the ulama that said that the Sharia has not set a limit to how much what is constituted as travel Islamically. There's khilaf in it, but let's assume now the opinion that says that there is no distance that the Sharia has specified this is considered travel. They say it goes back to the culture and the custom. Whatever the people consider travel is travel, right? So there are certain aspects where we go back to the culture as a point of reference. Now, marriage is the same thing. There are certain things that can be looked at as the culture for a point of reference. For example, some things aren't. The husband provides. That's in the Quran. You don't need culture to tell you that, right? If the culture goes against that, we say, listen, but the Quran said. Sometimes the Quran is silent on certain things, right? Certain things, for example, the ulama that said that the cooking and the cleaning bit, it goes back to the culture.
Yeah.
Why did they say this? Because there's no clear indication of the Quran. So that the wife has to do this. That was the argument. So it goes back to the tradition, the culture. And if we were to find a culture where the women are not expected to cook and clean, then we would say al-'ada muhakkama, this is what we're going to go for. So that's how the relationship of culture and marriage, or culture and Islam, should be. If Islam has set a limit, forget about culture. If it's left ambiguous, we look at the culture and we are allowed to use it as a point of reference. So it's a very healthy relationship, actually, because corrects that which needs correcting and respects that was there, and it also allows different areas to kind of have different lives and different dynamics, which is perfectly fine.
It also shows, subhanAllah, that Islam is for everyone.
Yeah, it is. It will fit everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, طيب. So, but now often what we have is wrong aspects of our culture being superimposed into marriages, and then saying we have to take this. This is wrong.
Yeah.
This is wrong. Such as, for example, sisters that are being asked to not only serve their husbands, but their husbands' brothers and sisters and mother-in-laws and all this and the whole family. And all of a sudden, you're expected to be getting into a marriage, but instead of a marriage, you're now just working for all these people.
Yeah.
This would be something that is an oppression on this woman, and which is not allowed. So right, and there are other things as well. So I think when it comes to culture, it is, if it doesn't go against Islam, fabiha wa ni'mat, it's fine.
But you won't even know unless you know Islam, right?
Exactly, which is the importance of studying and learning about rights and responsibilities and what each other owe, etc.
Exactly.
Allah knows best.
Yeah, you talked about polygamy, sah? And from what you said about polygamy, I want to ask another question, inshallah. Do you think that the questions that have come up now in terms of polygamy and how people view it, it was never the case a long time ago, and also in different cultures? Polygamy is something which was widely accepted. No one had an issue with it until we started moving towards, more Western culture, Western society. And I maybe even argue that even Western culture and Western societies in the past, it was something that they practiced as well, right? But Islam came to do it the right way.
Ahsan. I think, like we mentioned even earlier, we are always affected by the society that we live in, the times that we live in.
Yeah.
And even now, geographically, if you go to different countries, the way they would view it would be very different than the way it's viewed maybe in the West. And I think, if anything, that tells you that we often fall into the norms and the views of the culture that we associate ourselves with.
Yeah.
A lot of sisters that now are in the West, they expect that their husband just only stays with them. And if that's their expectation, their personal expectation, then that's not something they should communicate. And that's fine. But like I mentioned earlier, there's a big difference between what Islam allows. Islam allows being the operative word. It's halal. And that doesn't mean that we do everything that's halal. And this is a discussion that every couple should have. I do believe that also with the brothers, sometimes they are thinking about second and third wives when they need to worry about the first and understand, listen, maintain this household first to a degree that is respectable and good before you start thinking about taking another responsibility, another burden on. And they should see it as a responsibility and a burden. But the few that can manage it, can do it, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in it. In the end of the day, you want to increase the ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we want to have many homes that have khair in them. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of the marriages, whether they are single household or many households. I remember there was this shaykh, he was asked this question. And he said the following. He said, I am a muwahid, and I am a muwahid, and I'm a khaif. And he said both are respectable and honorable and good characteristics to have. To be someone that is muwahid. Muwahid means, so there's a play of word there, to single out Allah in worship. but also it means to just single out, to be one that does only one, meaning I only have one wife.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm also fearful. And he was trying to say, we need to be fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyway, I think it was something that he did in jest. But at the end of the day, it all depends on your situation and where you are in your life and what you want to do. The hukum of it is halal. And those that want to engage in it, they should engage in it responsibly. And those sisters that have difficulty with it, ensure that you always remember that you make a distinction between what you personally are against and what Islam allows. And Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. I think inshallah we'll conclude with that. And I do want to bring you back, and we need to discuss other aspects of marriage. So there will be different parts to this, the different episodes that we'll do, because I know you want to talk about talaq, divorce as well, raising children,
yes.
Even maybe before marriage,
yes.
what people need to do. So I look forward to having you back, inshallah, to have more discussion. Would there be anything else that you would like to say to conclude our episode today?
I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our homes,
Ameen.
Our marriages,
Ameen.
To bring all of the husbands and wives closer together and make them households where Tawheed is established, where Allah's worship is established, where they are filled with tranquility, love and mercy. And I encourage all brothers and sisters that listen to this and watch this, that they try and improve themselves. And those of you that are married, try and strive to become better wives and better husbands, fulfill each other's rights, uphold the responsibilities Allah put upon you, and remember in the end of the day that all goodness, khair, will come from Allah and His Messenger. And that's where you will find your answers, and Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah. And with that, inshallah, we'll end this episode. I've been Muhammad Basa'id here with Shaykhna Imam Mustafa Abu Rayyan. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and also leave a comment in the comment section, inshallah ta'ala. Until next time, subhanak Allahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.